want to, before I go straight to the developmental part of franchising, to give you a little bit of background on franchising. A lot of people think franchising is something new or was just lately created. This is not the case. The very first franchise was already awarded 1860, so more than 150 years ago, to the Singer Company. Then we had utility franchises, then we had the car industry and the petroleum industry. 1921, the first food franchise, a company called White Castle. And then the way we franchise today, and what I will be talking about this afternoon now here, is what we call business format franchising. Okay? Same in the Philippines. The Singer Company started it, then after World War II, we had the foreign brands coming up to the Asian crisis 1997, when actually that was the birth of the domestic franchise industry, 1997, because the dollar went so high that people were looking for domestic companies to franchise them. So by today we have more than 1,400 franchise companies in the Philippines, and almost 700 in the meantime actually, already my clients, so more than half. 1,400 including the foreign brands. Local brands are only around 1,000. So 700 of them are my clients. Okay, by demand, around 60% of all franchises, both sides, supply and demand, are food related. So food franchises, food kiosks, restaurants, cafes, anything what has to do with food. The second biggest category today is what I call the vanity sector. Anything what has to do with beautification, in particular of our females, salons, spas, etc., etc. The third biggest group today is the health sector. Okay, so pharmacies, laboratories, etc. All right. So let's talk about business format franchising, which is actually a contractual relationship between two parties. The franchisor with the OR at the end who sells the franchise, and the franchisee with the double E at the end who buys the franchise. And the franchise allows the franchisee to use the trademark and the way of doing business for a certain period of time, which is indicated in the franchise agreement, for which the franchisee pays him a certain amount as a franchise fee. And of course, for that, the franchisee does not go anymore through the pains of a startup company. Generally speaking, a franchisor and a franchisee are legally independent entity. So every franchisee has to get their own business registration. Not under the name of the franchisor, but under their own name. Okay? So every franchisee has to get their own DTI or their own SEC papers. They have to get their own mayor's permit. They need their own registration at the BAR. They cannot ride along on the franchisor. Every franchisee is legally an independent entity. The franchisor controls what we call through the procurement program. The procurement program are the list of the authorized suppliers and supplies from where a franchisee has to purchase. And also a franchisor controls what a franchisee is allowed to sell in the first place. So for example, if you're a McDonald's franchisee, you cannot add shoe pao because you like to eat shoe pao. And you cannot also take out, let's say, the fish things. Or you cannot do that also, okay? So you can only sell what the franchise allows you to sell, and not more, and also not less, all right? Then, we also have an exclusive territory usually, which is a certain radius around the franchise facility where no other franchisee or company outlet is to be established. Also in franchising, we talk of an exclusive relationship. Exclusive relationship means that the franchisee is not allowed to compete with the franchisor's business. You can have any kind of business if you want to buy a franchise, but you cannot have the same business again on the side or under a different brand, okay? So let's say if you're a McDonald's franchisee, you cannot get a Burger King, because that would be direct competition. You cannot compete directly with your franchisee. You can come any kind of business, but nothing competing with the franchise business. That's what we call exclusive relationship. And of course, every franchisee has to secure their own location. So what does a franchise provide? If you have a business and you want to franchise it out, that is what you give to your franchisees in exchange of the franchise fee. Or if you want to buy a franchise, that is what you get for paying a franchise fee for. First of all, the system standards, the way of operating. There is no difference between a company outlet and a franchise outlet, okay? From the consumer point, if you go into a business, you should not find out that's a franchise, but that's a company outlet. It has to be 100% the same. So therefore, every franchisee gets from the franchisor the system standards. Second, the trademarks. Very important that anybody who goes into franchising as a franchisor owns his trademark. Very important. What is actually a trademark? Anything registered with the Intellectual Property Office. If you have a TTI certificate for a business name registration or SEC registration, it's not enough to be a franchisor. It's not enough. You're not allowed to award any franchise just because you have already a TTI name or a SEC. You need a trademark. Okay? Trademark is awarded by the Intellectual Property Office. Okay? So that's independent from the TTI registration or the SEC registration. Every franchisor needs it. A franchisee does not need it because he gets it from the franchisor. Alright? But for a franchisor, 100% important that every franchisor has a trademark registration. There's only one in the Philippines, in Taguig, Intellectual Property Office. Okay? Third, of course, the experience and the wisdom of the franchisor. Every franchisor has to provide also an operations manual to the franchisees. I'll explain that a little bit later on. And then of course also training. Training per se for the franchisee and the staff is part of the franchise fee. When I talk of training, it means the initial training. Okay? How long that initial training takes depends on how complex the business is. If it's a cart or kiosk, it might only be 5 days or so. If it's a full-fledged restaurant, it might be a whole month. It really depends on how complex the business is. But it includes only the initial training. However, by initial training, we also understand, for example, after 3 years, the franchisor comes up with a new menu or any new product which requires training. Still part of the franchise fee because it's initial. Okay? However, let's say like the franchisee changes the glue after 5 months, and the new staff needs training, franchisor can charge for that because it's already a repeat training. So only the initial training, whenever that is part of the franchise fee. Repeat trainings can already be charged to the franchisor. And of course also the franchisor has to give some site selection assistance. He has to inform the franchisee, the applicant already before he becomes a franchisee, on what kind of locations he has to be looking for. How many square meter, how many meter frontage, or certain particulars about the location. And then the franchisor has to approve or disapprove the location once the applicant found the location. Okay? Also the franchisor has to provide a store layout which has to be adopted by the franchisee or his contractor, but before the franchisee can go into construction, the franchisor has to approve the final layout. Alright? Very important. And then of course also what we call, in some cases we have a construction supervision. Let's say like among my clients like Cherry's Grill, they have an in-house architect who goes around and checks on all the construction sites so that they all look like, feel like a Cherry's Grill, okay? So, but usually it's only for big construction related franchises. Normally we don't need it all. And then the exclusive territory, the radius around the franchise facility. The procurement program, like I said earlier, is the list of the authorized suppliers and suppliers from where a franchisee has to purchase. So for example, if this room would be a franchised outlet, we would specify where to buy the table, where to buy the tablecloth, etc., etc. Okay? Or we specify a certain brand. You might not specify where to buy it, but a brand, for example, if you're using ketchup, you might specify, okay, the Monte tomato ketchup, for example. But you don't care if they're buying it in SM or at Robinson or at Kisano. But just the brand, okay? So that they will not buy the Papa's Banana ketchup. because it's cheaper, all right? So that's what we call the procurement program. The list of the authorized suppliers and the list of the authorized suppliers, okay? Also very important is that every franchisor is giving opening assistance. The opening assistance, we understand, when the franchisee opens his facility, a representative from the franchisor will be with the franchisee to help them facilitate the opening. Same story, depends on how complex the business is. If it's a car to kiosk, that might be only 5 days. If it's a restaurant, it might be only a month. The maximum among my clients again is Cherry's Grill, where there's a 3-month team for 3 weeks, a 3-month team for 3 months in the outlets, okay? Big franchise companies like Cherry's or McDonald's or Jollibee, they have their own opening teams. They do nothing else but open outlets. Sorry. So that's what they call the opening assistance by a franchisor. Then also the marketing strategies, any marketing strategy a franchise is doing to promote the brand, promote the products, franchises are allowed to do as well. By effective field service, we understand 2 things. Number 1, the franchisor has to be reachable by his franchisee anytime they have a problem. Today, no big deal, everybody has cell phone and all the apps and email, etc., etc. The second way is also that the franchisor has to regularly visit his franchisees on a regular basis, okay? To make sure that they're operating in the right way. And then of course also the franchisor is in charge for research and development, coming up with new products, coming up with new equipment or new marketing schemes, etc., etc. Of course also the franchisor will be charging royalty usually. Royalty is charged in a franchise system for the continuation of the training, for the continuation use of the trademark, for the assistance for the franchisor to be there whenever a franchisee needs him. Okay? And a franchise royalty is always based, or normally based, on cross sales. Cross sales in franchising is total sales minus tax. So minus VAT or sales tax, that is considered cross sales. And out of that is the royalty based, which is normally between, in retail there is no royalty. Because if it's 100% merchandise transfer, it's already built in the merchandise price, the transfer price. Big shop and drugstores have the lowest royalties. The drugstores, because in most cases the supplier is also the franchisor, but the big shops, because of Shoelies, they were the first to franchise out. So, and they started low, so everybody else was forced to start low also. Generally in the food business, it's between 3 to 6%. In the vanity sector, we have something differently. So in the salon business in particular, instead of a percentage, we have a fixed rate, what we call the continuation fee, where every franchisee pays every month the same amount, regardless of sales actually, okay? We call that the continuation fee. The highest royalties are charged by education franchises. The reason why is because education franchises don't have a renewal fee. Alright? Because a normal franchise after 5 years or whatever, when you renew, you pay a renewal fee. Education franchises don't have a renewal fee. In exchange, they have a higher royalty. Advertisement-wise, franchisee might be forced, more or less, to participate in up to 4 kinds of advertisement schemes. First of all, what we call grand opening marketing. Grand opening marketing, as the name says, when you start your franchise outlet, you have to spend some money to promote the business in your neighborhood so that people will know of your existence, okay? We call it grand opening marketing. Normally, small amounts, 5,000, 10,000, what is directly spent by the franchisee, so that the neighborhood will know that the franchise is in operation. Then we have what we call local store marketing, also spent directly by the franchisee to continuously promote his business within his territory. By co-op advertisement, we understand, as the name says, cooperative, co-op, that as a number of franchisees do a cooperative advertisement. Let's say like there's a billboard, let's say there are 5 franchises in Bulacan, and they have 1 billboard in NLEX. So these 5 franchisees share the cost of the billboard. That's what we call a co-op advertisement in franchising. The only advertisement schemes which might be operated by a franchisor is the National Advertisement Fund. As the name says, national, only for companies who are already in big time into operating. So if they're already on a national scale, then they need advertisement through radio or TV. Example, if you go to Jollibee, whatever you pay in Jollibee, 3%, doesn't matter if it's a franchise outlet or company outlet. 3% of the sales goes to the National Advertisement Fund. So that in the evening when you watch your favorite telenovela, you see Sarah Geronimo patting a chicken joy. Okay, so that is how it is all paid out of the National Advertisement Fund, collected from all company and franchise outlets. Geographically, we talk of 3 types of franchises, namely the unit franchise, one outlet, the area franchise, and the master franchise. So let's talk about first of the unit franchise. As the name says, 1 unit, so 1 contract is 1 outlet. Okay? Normally, the length of a unit franchise agreement is 5 to 10 years. Minimum is 3 years. Okay? I only use 3 years if it's IT related or if it is cell phone related because of fast changing technologies. If somebody offers a 1 or 2 year franchise agreement, that's usually the scammers. We have unfortunately a few scammers in the Philippines in franchising. They're using that gimmick of giving a 1 year or 2 year franchise agreement. Okay, but serious franchises always start at 3 years of length in agreement. Okay? So unit franchise. The second is area franchise. As the name says, you get a geographical territory in a city or a province or region, but still within the Philippines. Okay? With that comes a development program, meaning to say they have to open in exchange for exclusivity. For example, you get the area franchise for Cebu. You might have to open 5 outlets in 3 years or 3 outlets in 2 years. Depends on what kind of business you're doing. Okay? So there's a development program. That's what we call an area franchise. And you have to follow that development program in order for you to keep the exclusivity. If you cannot do it, it might be terminated and then the existing outlets might be converted to unit franchises. And the area is available again. And then we talk of master franchise. The master franchising, you get the rights to a whole country. Okay? Like in the Philippines, we have a lot of master franchises in operation for those who bought the rights for, let's say, like McDonald's, Wendy's, Dunkin' Donuts, all of them are master franchises. Only one entity has the right to the whole country. And we also do that the other way around. 33 of my clients have already Filipino clients have already franchises outside the Philippines. We have one called Barbecue Chicken House. They only have 17 outlets in the Philippines. They have 27 outside. So they're already bigger in 8 countries. So they're growing faster abroad than actually. Oh, 2 minutes left. Okay, I have to speak faster. All right. So then also you have, if you're a franchisor, you have to provide your franchisees with what we call a franchise disclosure information. Every franchisor, if you buy a franchise, you can ask this, but if you have been approved as a franchisee, the franchise disclosure information, which gives information about the franchise. We have them all listed up here. Also, franchise agreement. As I told you, we have 700 clients. Every franchise agreement is different, tailored to a company between 20 to 50 pages. So it really depends on how complex the business is. Usually it contains the appointment and the franchise fee, the terms, and the renewal clause. Very important that every franchise agreement has a renewal clause. We talk about the facility location, the equipment, the fixtures, the training, and the and the opening assistance by the franchisor. We talk about proprietary marks. Proprietary marks is another word for trademarks. Okay, we call them proprietary marks because they're proprietary to the franchisor in the contract. And also the rule about the operations manual. Of course, the operations manual is a separate entity which we prepare also. Modification of the system, also important. If the franchisor changes anything, the franchisee has to follow that one and change also, or if there's an added menu or added equipment. Then the rule about the advertisement, what I already explained to you. Then the rules about royalties, when to pay, how much to pay, how many percent. And the rules about accounting and records, particularly if there's a POS system involved. The standards of quality and performance, and the systems by the franchisor. Also, the insurance and the what you call covenants clause. Covenants clause is what I told you earlier, the exclusivity. You're not allowed to compete with yourself. Legally, we call it the covenants clause. And all the reasons why a franchisee can be in default and terminated. Now, we don't immediately terminate a franchisee. We have something what is called curing. Okay, if you screw up, we send a notice to cure. So you have 10 days time to straighten out. If you don't straighten out, then the franchisor can take over and straighten it out. Worst case scenario would be termination, which is very, very seldom the case. I only know of among my clients, only 4 terminations out of 40,000 franchises that my clients have. Also, we talk about transferability of interest. That means in plain English, if a franchisee wants to sell his business, that's possible. Okay, the rules and regulations we have there. A franchisee can sell the remaining balance of his contract or any extension of that, of course with approval of the franchisor. Also, in case if the franchisee dies, the heirs can take over and they can continue or they can sell it. Then we have a memorandum of agreement, which is usually the pre-contract to the franchise agreement. That one is used when, especially in malls, we always need a memorandum of agreement because the mall has to approve first the concept. Agreement with the landlord is another agreement, tripartite between landlord, franchisor, and franchisee to secure the location for the franchisee. Guarantee no sanction of obligation we use if a franchisee is undercapitalized and he has a financial backers, and transfer the lease agreement in case a franchisee sells his business. Okay. Generally, is your business franchisable? If you are, normally we say you should be at least 1 year business, okay? That's what you always should be beyond the trial and error stage, or have achieved payback period. That's one of the 3, whatever is applicable. Today we have another scheme which is called Ground Zero Development, where we actually already with the client before they actually start up. One of my most successful Ground Zero developments was Phoenix Petroleum. We were already with Dennis Oy before he actually put up the first station. So we do this also, we call this Ground Zero. But generally, the business has to be able to be copied according to the systems. You have to be profitable. If you don't know how to make money, how could the franchisee be able to make money? And of course, there has to be credibility and a need for that business in other locations. So don't franchise your business if you don't have at least 1 outlet. We need 1 outlet. 3 reasons. First of all, to show it off. Second, for training of the franchisees. And third for research and development. So or you need at least one outlet, okay? So if your business is failing, don't franchise, because if you think your franchise is sync with you. If it also depends too much, we cannot charge brains, okay? It has to be, we have to be able to transfer the systems to the franchisees. If gross margins are very small and not compensated by high volume, we may have a problem. If products are a fats usually last only 2 years. I like longevity, so product lines would be something people like for a long time. Or if it's the level of training is too long that you cannot teach it in 3 months. Or if you do the franchise development by yourself instead of hiring a consultant. So, what are the advantages? Being a franchisor, you receive franchise fees, you can collect royalties, you gain from selling to the franchisees, you can expand the brand, the speed you want to grow by using OPM, other people's money. Okay, so what do you need if you develop a company according to a franchise? First of all, a franchise structure. We do that, and all of them, what I'm telling you is actually what we do for our clients. First of all, a franchise structure, I take care of that personally. That's my job, actually, in the case of RK, where we figure out how we package it, how we calculate the investment package for the franchisees, the franchise fee, royalties, length of agreement. And space requirements. Then we provide them with a franchise manual. We provide an operations manual. You need an operations manual because franchisees need to be guided. Operations manual in our case has minimum between 400 pages up, call it that way. If it's a restaurant, easily can have 800 or even more pages. And it's broken down into sub-manuals. So the first sub-manual is pre-opening manual, all what the franchisee has to do before they open. Second, the administration manual, all about employees from hiring to firing, all about the money. Then we have specialty manuals, let's say like if you're a restaurant, kitchen manual. Then standard operating procedures manual from opening to closing. Then training manual and forms and reports, okay? So this is tailored, same as the legal. This is 100% tailored to each and every of our clients. I have a whole group of 13 people, we call them developers. They do nothing else but operations manuals. So there's always assigned to each and every client of us. Oops. So, and then of course we do the legal, yes, happen. Okay, then we do the legal documentation, franchise agreement and all the side agreements, also for area franchising and international franchising. You will need all of that if you want to be a professional franchisor. And then of course also, like what we do, what we need, the trademark. So we help our clients in securing the trademark. We also help them with the applicants, and how to get applicants, and we train them for that one. We have lifelong free after service. We also help in marketing. We have franchise. If you look for a franchise, you can look at franchise.ph. All our clients are there on franchise.ph. Or you can also read our magazine, franchising.ph, online. All issues, from the very first issue, is online for all 7 years at franchising.ph. So we have both franchise.ph and franchising.ph. Oops. Goes too fast. Can you go back to this last 3 slides? Okay. Okay. Alternative business forms to business format franchise. What we use sometimes also, licensing arrangement. If not 100%, in franchising we have 100% uniformity. So if you don't have 100% uniformity, use a process what is called licensing arrangements. Sometimes we also use dealerships. If you look at Powerfill outside the gasoline station, they're my client. It's built up like a franchise, but it's actually a dealership. Okay? So we masquerade it, but legally it's a dealership. Distributorships are less controlled compared to franchises. For example, if you're familiar with PSCF, Professional Stinctor Formula, by Dr. Alvin, we made it to distributorship instead of a franchise. So whatever is applicable, whatever is best for a particular business line. Okay, so if you're interested in our services, in case we are RK Franchise Consultancy, we have a booth outside. I'm still here this afternoon. So if you want to talk to me on a one-on-one about franchising, or you talk to Leica or my other staff there. We also actually already, we are a Filipino company, 20 years in existence, but we're also developing franchises in the Middle East as in the introduction under the brand Fran Access, and we also open now PHILSME franchising, which is based in Toronto. So we became actually, luckily, a global brand. And these are my endorsers. We developed their business and they're endorsing us now, Tony and Alex Gonzaga, for whom we developed the Happy Cup franchise. Thank you very much for listening to me.